Okay, in this video, we're going to look at solving equations that have fractions, just like here. So we see we've got some fraction bars here. I have these two equations written kind of side by side because they look similar, but they're actually very different. And so the differences comes in looking at the fraction. So on this over here, this equation over here, the fraction is 2a over 4. And over here, the fraction is 2a plus 6 over 4. So on the right, or sorry, on the left over here, we have two different terms. We have 2a over 4, and we have 6 as two different terms. And then over here on the right, this is all one big fat term. 2a plus 6 over 4 is all one. We'll treat that as one term. So that's going to affect how we solve it. Let's start with this equation over here. I really have two kind of main choices that I can make here. I could start this equation by subtracting 6 from both sides, or I could start this equation by multiplying both sides by 4. If I were to choose to multiply both sides by 4, I would have to make sure that I distribute this 4 because these are two separate terms. They're separated by this plus sign. Now I am going to choose to subtract 6 because I think that's easier to do. You might think multiplying by 4 is easier. You can do whatever you want to do. In this example, I'll show you how to multiply by 6. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. When I do that, my 6's are eliminated down to 0. And all I have left on this side is 2a, 2 times the number, divided by 4, is going to equal 15 minus 6, which is 9. Now, I have this fraction still that I'm working with. And so I need to think about how can I if you want to think about like getting rid of the fraction, I want to have a whole number. And so I would do that by thinking about simplifying the denominator to 1. And I can simplify that denominator down to 1 by multiplying it by 4 wholes, which is just 4. And when I do that, these 4's are going to be divided by each other. So I have 4 divided by 4, and I know that 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I've got my denominator simplified to 1. So all I have left here is just 2a. And I need to make sure that I multiply this side by 4 as well. 9 times 4 is 36. So now I just have one last step. I need to get a all by itself. So I'm going to divide by 2 on each side. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I'm left with 1a equals 36 divided by 2, which is 18. So a equals 18. Okay, let's take a look at how we would solve this equation over here. Now this one, I really just have one thing that I can start with, and that's by multiplying by 4. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. And the reason I'm putting this 4 over 1 is because I'm multiplying by a fraction. So it's just easier to think about multiplying a fraction by a fraction for me. When I'm multiplying here, I have got a 4 and a 4. So those are really going to be divided by each other because we know that a fraction bar is the same as division. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now all I have left with on this side is 2a plus 6 is going to be equal to 60. All right, and now I've got this nice, easy looking two-step equation. So I'm just going to start plugging away and solving this. I'm going to subtract 6 from each side. 6 minus 6 is 0. So I have 2a equals 54. And now I'm going to divide each side by 2. I know that 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I'm left with 1a equals 27. So a equals 27. And with each of these, I can plug my answer back into the equation to check to see if it is correct. Okay, let's take a look at 2 more examples. These ones get a little more challenging because we have multiple terms on each side. So let's take a look at this one here. I'm going to start by drawing my line down the middle. And let's see, I've got a couple of choices here. I could subtract 8 from each side. I could subtract 7 from each side. I could subtract one of these terms, but then I would be needing to find common denominator. So that's not really going to be an option for me because I don't want to do that. Or I could multiply both sides by 5. I'm going to start by subtracting 7. And then I end up with x divided by 5, because those are eliminated, equals 2x plus 1. Now I see that I have a denominator and I want to simplify that denominator to 1. So I'm going to multiply this side by 5, and I'll need to multiply this side by 5. And I have 5 divided by 5 is 1. And then I'm left with just 1x equals, and I got to distribute this 5 because there's 2 terms over here, 10x plus 5. Now to get my x's all on one side, I'm going to subtract 10x. 1x minus 10x is negative 9x equals 5. And then I need to divide by negative 9 on both sides. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is positive 1. So I'm left with 1x, which is just x, equals negative 5 ninths as my answer. I'm going to solve this another way as well. I'm going to show you what it looks like if we're going to multiply both sides by 5 first. So let's undo our work here. Boop, 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 boop. You can hear my cat in the background. Maybe he's scratching at the door wanting to eat, but I'm just going to feed him when I'm done with this equation here. Let me erase all this here, and then we'll solve it by multiplying both sides by 5. Okay, here we go. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is draw my line down the middle. And let's multiply by 5. So I'm putting this in parentheses because I have 2 terms on each side. Whenever I multiply, and I'm multiplying by multiple terms, that 5 has to be distributed to every term. So this 5 is going to be distributed to all 4 of these terms here. So my first one, 5 times x over 5. Remember, those 5s are going to simplify to 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So I'm just left with x. And then I have 5 times 7, which is 35. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 8 is 40. Okay, now I've got this multi-step equation. It's simplified on both sides. So I'm just going to start choosing numbers to eliminate first. I like to keep my variables positive, so I am going to eliminate the x from each side. When I do that, I'm left with 35 equals 9x plus 40. Now I've got a 2-step equation here, so I'm going to subtract the 40. I'm left with negative 5 equals 9x, and then I'll divide each side by 9, and I get the same answer. Negative 5/9 equals x. Okay, so that's how I solve it, by multiplying by 5 first. All right, this one here is very similar, but notice the difference in the fraction. This is x over 5 plus 7. This is x plus 7 over 5. So we're going to have to treat this equation differently than this one here. With this equation, I am going to start by multiplying by 5, because that will immediately eliminate or not eliminate, it's going to simplify the denominator down to 1. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. And I'm left with x plus 7 equals, and I'm going to distribute this 5 to both terms, because it's two terms. They're separated by this plus sign here. So this was all one term because it was connected through the fraction bar. All right, so now here I have 10x plus 40. Okay, so again, I am going to, well, I subtracted x first last time. I'll subtract 10x here, even though I'm going to end up with a negative variable. But I'll solve this for the folks who like to have the variable on the left side. So this is going to be eliminated down to 0, and I'm left with 40. And then this x, remember, x is 1x. So 1x minus 10 would be negative 9x plus 7 equals 40. Now I've got this nice little two-step equation, so I am going to subtract 7 from each side, and I'm left with negative 9x equals 33. And when I get down to this point, my last step is to divide. And I'm always going to divide by the number that's connected to the x, by that coefficient. So I'm going to divide by negative 9. And negative 9 divided by negative 9 is 1. So I'm left with 1x, or x equals negative 33/9. And leaving it as an improper fraction is totally fine. If that kind of bugs you, you are welcome to use your calculator and divide that and find the decimal. But that's how you solve equations with fractions.